But obviously the big story, and I mentioned the ratings for this. I think it all is going to go around the quarterbacks and who did not get, and the one that did not get picked until the fifth round, which was Shedeur Sanders. And I think there was, I've never seen anything like, I mean, the president of the United States is tweeting out about, his his scouting,
yeah.
his scouting of Shedeur. But like, I've never seen anything like this. And I think it really sadly hijacked the entire draft. I mean, granted, this drew up viewership, and like I'm sure the bosses at ESPN and NFL Network, which I think are those are almost going to be the same thing here pretty soon, are probably happy with that. But it wasn't great TV, and I think it was a disservice to a lot of the other. I think it was a disservice to Shedeur as well, but it was a disservice to all the other kids that got drafted during that time that, it wasn't being this was their day to celebrate these guys. And instead we're talking about this giant controversy, which in my mind was not really a controversy.
Yeah. Again, we go back to two things can be true. I didn't watch ESPN, so I don't really have a take on the Mel Kiper thing. I've been told a ton about it, and obviously you've seen clips of it. I watch NFL Network just because big DJ guy,
Yeah.
Daniel Jeremiah. I think he's the best draft analyst in my lifetime that I've seen. And I say that because his economy of words and his ability to say things that matter just continue to stand out, right? So it's fit with the team, it's evaluation, it's something personal. He's lighthearted, he's self-deprecating, he's in and out, and it's tight. I think the Shedeur Sanders conversation is one that merits a lot of opinions, and that's okay. Like, we're super passionate about the sport and about the craft. I think all of us, me included, as analysts of this great game, it feels good when you're right. It feels good when you're right. I love calling a game and predicting they're going to throw it to number 3 at the bottom, and I circle them, they throw it to him. Like, I give myself a little pat on the back when it happens. Like, that's part of it. I think what seemingly got off the rails a little bit when it came to the broadcasts of the NFL draft was it seemed to be like everyone wanted to show that the NFL teams were wrong, versus like they told you in the first 3 rounds that they weren't going to take them. And the history of the NFL at the quarterback position would tell you, for the most part, if you're not chosen as a quarterback in the first 2 rounds, if not 3 rounds, you're not seen as a potential starter. I'll go back to Russell Wilson. He's drafted by the Seahawks. They signed Matt Flynn to a record deal. Remember that? And then all of a sudden, like, Russell beat him out, right? It wasn't anticipated dramatically. They were like, we really like him. That'd be cool. But they thought they had their guy. So the point is that everything in the history of the NFL will tell you, if you're not drafted early, then you're seen as a backup. And that's just the truth. Years and years ago, I can remember talking to somebody, a guy named Pat Kerwin, who I just love. He's been a mentor for over 20 years now. And he used to always say, like, the NFL just tells you the truth. And I get that there's conspiracy theories out there, and I'm not here to get into any of them, Jim. I could care less, to be honest with you. But there is something to, like, NFL teams, and I'm not trying to compare professions, but I don't know of another profession that is as ruthless as the NFL. I just don't know of one. I'm sure they exist, right? Politics might be one, but you don't get fired. Like, you can't fire the president tomorrow, even if the economy tanks. Like, you could fire the head coach the day after he makes a questionable decision, a la the Bears over Thanksgiving, right? And what do you do at the end of the game? Gone the next day. Might have been gone anyway, but the point is, like, it's super ruthless. So they're trying to win. They're trying to win now. Like, coordinators are trying to score and score now. Like, there is no, like, let's draft a guy to develop him in the room as a quarterback. Like, you don't draft, like, Achilles Smith Jr. is on the Oregon Ducks roster. He's a true freshman. He's 6'5", probably 220, and he runs like a deer, but he's not a full packaged, polished quarterback right now. They brought him in to develop and sit behind Austin Novosad and Luke Moga and Dante Moore. You don't really do that in the NFL. It doesn't really happen unless you're, like, so dynamic as a runner and you're Antoine Randall, or you just got this unique skill set that, like, can be used in a bunch of different ways. At least not that I'm aware of. So the Shedeur thing, like, 2 things can be true. Is he a really efficient on-rhythm passer? Heck yeah. Dramatically accurate. Hell yeah. Tough as nails. I would agree with that. And two things can be true. Did he struggle in some meetings in terms of giving the staffs what they were seeking to convince them to draft him to be the face of a franchise? Yeah, clearly. Clearly that happened. And it also happened to other guys who slid in the draft. Quinn Ewers is another one of them, whether it was his physical traits, whether it was in the meeting. Like, we don't know. But I don't think this was like, I don't think it was appropriate to comp it to Colin Kaepernick. And it was like this thing against the Sanders family. I think there's a couple lessons we could pull out of it. Like the way that Coach Prime, I think, navigated the promotion of his son of, yeah, we're going to choose the team we go to. Like, I don't know if that turned teams off, but it definitely didn't say, like, let me go draft you. Dylan Gabriel, who to me, I've said it how many times now, like greatest hit factor I've seen in 25 years. Like, you meet him, you spend time with him, it just cements the decision. I would imagine, well, I'm not imagining it. I'm going to tell you that, like, the teams that met him, because it's been out so many times from so many different outlets, it went the other way. Like, if they wanted to cement the decision, it went to be like, So now you're a backup quarterback. And what's your job as a backup quarterback? To be the greatest teammate ever, not to go take the guy's job. I'll give you a quick story and I'll get your feedback here. There was a quarterback who was really talented a couple years ago, came out in the NFL draft. And he had a chance to go to a team in the NFL where his skill set was similar to the starting quarterback. And he went into his meeting and they said, what's your goal if we draft you here? And he goes, I'm going to go win the job. I'm going to go be the starter. They just paid the guy like $100 million. So the front office and the staff was like, love it. Not the fit we need as a backup quarterback. So he went somewhere else, ironically found his way back to that team anyway. So maybe you could piece it all together. But my point is that, like, when they're drafting for the backup, they're looking for something specific. So now my question to the Cleveland Browns is one that many probably are asking. You got capable quarterbacks in the room. Joe Flacco, hosted him at Pitt. Love the guy. Kenny Pickett, hail to Pitt. Love the guy. And now you have Deshaun, which assuming we won't play Deshaun Watson, excuse me. And then you have Dylan and Shedeur. Like, how are you going to split up reps? This isn't like the Oregon Ducks where you're going like two fields, or UW under Jed Fish where you have that many players all the time. Like, I think it's just be hard to figure it out. I hope both of those young rookies get a shot. I know their play on the field will determine who ends up getting kept, but both of those guys unlikely to be on the same roster, in my lens at least, come roster cuts during training camp.
Yeah, and when you think about the draft too, it's all about, not only just the best player, but where are your needs? And so many teams went into this draft not needing a starting quarterback. So obviously Shedeur did not go in the first round. So in that, if you're taken in the first round, you're a guy that, like, hey, we're either going to start you right away. Like, I imagine Cam Ward is going to probably be expected to start right away. Or Jackson Dart, who went in the back end of the first round, we expect you to become the starter. We have some guys right now that can be
one-year deals.
Yeah, we have them in there, and hopefully by the end of the year, you've beaten them out and are now the starter. After that, to your point, like, do we think you're a starter, or do we think maybe you can become a starter, or can you be like that good teammate? And obviously,
and I don't think it's good teammate. I think we should rephrase. Like, I don't think he's been a really good teammate. I think, like, all of his teammates. I don't want to get taken out of context for us.
Yeah. Like, no, I wasn't suggesting that he wasn't. I'm just saying that's what an NFL team is wanting to.
And I think he'll be a great teammate. I think Shedeur Sanders is going to find a way to do whatever it takes to now survive. Will he? I don't know. He'll be in the NFL for a couple of years for sure. Will he get a shot as a starter? So many dominoes have to fall that way. I hope he does. I hope Dylan Gabriel gets a shot as a starter. I just think Cleveland is so unique. Like, I look at that thing and I'm like, Joe Flacco is the surest thing. And then you got two guys that have never been there, and Kenny, who's been now he's on his third team. It's a situation where I'm struggling finding, like, how is it healthy? How is there enough oxygen in the room for everybody in the room? I don't know that. I know the quarterback coach, so do you, and Bill Musgrave, one-time Oregon Duck, one-time Cal Bear offensive coordinator, old school as they come.
Yep.
God, I'd love Hard Knocks to be in there. I don't think they are. I don't think have they decided who's the Hard Knocks team?
I don't.
Not
I don't
yet?
think that. I don't think they have yet. But also, like, all the last 2 years, Colorado football was the biggest story in college football as far as like attention.
Yep.
Everything they did, positive or negative, was viral. And while that was terrific for Colorado as far as getting them from a, not just a team that, couldn't win games to, they only went 13-12, as we've heard many times in those 2 years. But that's such a giant leap from where they were. The attendance, such a giant leap from where they were. Just an overall relevance, such a giant leap from where they were. That worked great for them and for him during that time. Now, the NFL teams, unless you are the starter, it doesn't really work great for them to have someone on the bench that all the attention is going to be about. Like, that's just a distraction. So I can see NFL teams being like, you know what? I don't need all this attention. I don't need to every week. If Shedeur is the third quarterback, like if he makes the team as the third quarterback, let's just spitball.
I don't think
here,
they will. Yeah,
I that they have to answer that. They have to answer that question every week, and that Deion has to answer that question every week in his Colorado presser. Like, I think it's just a thing that they don't really want to deal with if they don't have to, because we saw last year towards the end of the year, like, all the rumors about Deion getting the Cowboys job. So then, like, now would the rumors all be about like, now Deion's going to come take my job as head coach of this team. So I think that played against him in that respect. You talked about his completion percentage. He had the highest completion percentage in the country last year, 74%. Over his 2 years, it was 71%, which was the highest career in college football history, really. Which is great. And I've seen a lot of people using that as a stat. But if you look at like those top 25 all time of career completion percentage in college, not a lot of dudes that made it in the NFL. Like Joe Burrow was on that list,
sure. Yeah.
But it's a lot of guys that have gone on to become really good offensive coordinators.
Yeah, Luke Falk. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, yes, that is a great stat. And yes, that is a plus in his column. But that is not the only thing that obviously creates. I think it was maybe like 2 or 3 of those top 25 were like guys who would go, he was a successful quarterback. There's a couple that were like backups in the NFL and stuff like that. But Joe Burrow was the one that stood out among all of that. Now, who knows? Maybe Shedeur could reach that level with everything. But it's going to be a long road.